Southern man, a son of a firefighter's household, the gentleman from the great state of Louisiana and the 56th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson.
U.S. Republicans unanimously elected Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson as House Speaker on Wednesday. This comes after weeks of GOP infighting.
Thank you. First, a few words of gratitude. I want to thank Leader Jeffries. I do look forward to working with you on behalf of the American people. I know we see things from very different points of view, but I know that in your heart you love and care about this country and you want to do what's right. And so we're going to find common ground there, all right? The challenge before us is great, but the time for action is now, and I will not let you down. We stand at a very dangerous time. I'm stating the obvious. We all know that. The world is in turmoil. But a strong America is good for the entire world. I don't believe there are any coincidences in a matter like this. I believe that Scripture, the Bible, is very clear that God is the one that raises up those in authority. He raised up each of you, all of us. And I believe that God has ordained and allowed each one of us to be brought here for this specific moment in this time. This is my belief. In this time of great crisis, it is our duty to work together, as previous generations of great leaders have, to face these great challenges and solve these great problems. I will conclude with this. The job of the Speaker of the House is to serve the whole body, and I will. But I've made a commitment to my colleagues here that this Speaker's office is going to be known for decentralizing the power here. And we want our allies around the world to know that this body of lawmakers is reporting again to our duty stations. Let the enemies of freedom around the world hear us loud and clear. The People's House is back in business.
What happened to Mike Johnson's victory? After Jim Jordan had to drop out of the House Speaker race, after failing to get a majority on the third votes, 9 candidates were named.
Well, I thought our candidates did a great job. I was most heartened by those who wanted to advance single subject spending bills rather than link disparate issues like Ukraine funding and Israel funding together. But there was a unifying moment we had on the last question that I was honored to ask. I asked which of the candidates would support the prompt full release of the January 6 tapes to the public, and every single one of the candidates said they would do that. So if nothing else, this process will bring about that outcome that we were not able to obtain from the prior speaker.
Do you think we're going to have a speaker tomorrow night?
We might. We had some great candidates in there, and we'll go from this current group down to our designee, and I hope it's a productive endeavor.
Have you decided on who
that you're a hard no on? Somebody you can't support after what you tonight?
There might be one or two who had plans that I think were pretty inconsistent with where I think Republicans can go if we want to be a fighting force, but I'd say by and large we had really great candidates, and I'm pretty confident that the person that comes out will be able to put it together.
Who are those one or two?
I don't believe I said. Any other questions?
Yeah, you talked about single subject spending bills.
Yes.
Kevin Hern has a plan that would basically do a CR for the 2 hardest of the spending bills. Is that a non-starter for you?
Well, Kevin Hern, really laid out in his messaging to all the members a critique of governing by continuing resolution and omnibus bill, and he has a plan to get us to those single subject spending bills. If we have to bridge with the continuing resolution, that wouldn't be my preference, but we're certainly looking to go in the same direction. I would also note that Congressman Mike Johnson had a plan for single subject spending bills that was also quite attractive. Great, thanks guys.
House Majority Whip Tom Emmer won the Republican nomination to become Speaker after his colleagues cast a series of secret ballots, dwindling the group of 8 candidates down to 1. But in another secret tally of how many House Republicans would actually support Emmer if the vote came to the floor, the number 3 Republican reportedly fell around 26 votes short. He can only afford to lose the support of 4 GOP members.
We're in a very bad place.
Should he wait until he has 217 votes to go to the floor?
I would.
Emmer defeated Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana 117 to 97, far below the 217 votes he'll need to secure the Speaker's gavel. The 2 previous nominees, Representatives Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise, weren't able to muster enough support. Ousted Speaker Kevin McCarthy is backing Emmer.
Having been the whip, getting the tough votes, passing H.R. 1, making America energy independent, Parents' Bill of Rights, getting the debt ceiling. So he knows the conference well.
House Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar is also rejecting the idea that several Democrats are considering voting present to lower the threshold needed to help Emmer become Speaker.
That isn't a conversation that we've had.
As the House enters week 4 without a Speaker, no legislative business has been conducted, meaning they couldn't take up President Biden's request for $100 billion in military aid for Israel and Ukraine, or reach a compromise to fund the government before it could shut down next month.
Republicans have selected Tom Emmer as their Speaker nominee. I know you've said very often that the White House does not have a vote in this.
Ad nauseum, I'm sure.
Not involved in this process, but Emmer has been one of the more supportive Republicans for Ukraine aid across the board. Do you see that as a positive signal?
I'm just not going to speak to their process. I'm sure there's more steps to go, right, before we get to the end here. I think it's important and critical that the Republicans in the conference get their act together, get their business in order, and figure out who's going to lead not just the conference, obviously be, since they have the majority in the House, have a Speaker for the House. Just not going to get into it. I have said just moments ago, we have seen bipartisan support for the supplemental package that the President announced last week, that we spoke to last week. And so we believe that Congress should move forward with that. As it relates to their process and finding a Speaker, that is up to them. We do not, as the President has said himself, just quoting him, we do not have a vote in that space.
Even though the selection of Tom Emmer as Speaker of the House was expedient for the White House, there was opposition in the Republican conference.
I voted present. So you got to understand, you go through the alphabet. You start at A, and you move your way forward through the alphabet. By the time it got to the letter N, I voted present. I think there were 4 others, maybe 5 others. At that point in time, we already had upwards of 20 that said that they could not support Tom Emmer for Speaker. And this was a roll call vote. This was no, secret ballot. This was everybody having the stands. And in the end, I think there were maybe 28 or so that stated they're going to choose someone else other than Tom Emmer. I think Johnson had some. I think Jim Jordan had the most with about 12 or 15. So we are again back to where we started. This is where we're at. So now you had 8 willing to step up and try to provide that leadership, and we're not there. So now what are we going to do? We're going to find another round. Let's go into the 3rd round of draft choices, right, and find people willing to do this again. I don't know. If he wants to go to the floor, he can go to the floor. If we go to the floor, you know what I'm doing. I mean, let's make no mistake. I'll be nominating Donald J. Trump.
So you will definitely not vote for Mr. Emmer on the floor?
I will be going. I told Tom Emmer I won't be the one that would tank him, right? If he can get to 216, he could probably have me at 217. But when it gets to my name and there's 10, 12, 15, I think Donald Trump is their answer.
Why is there so much opposition to Emmer at this point?
I don't know. I mean, he obviously people are talking. He's had some issues with the former president. I think some of the comments that he's made in the past, I'm not going to get specific, but I think it's causing him some problems today. Why am I opposing him? I didn't oppose him. I just said there's no way. I don't see how he gets to 217. I just don't 216. How's he going to do it? If anybody out here, you got an answer to that, folks? You've got 20-something out there. What? You don't see anybody changing their minds? Oh, well, usually you change your mind when you go from a secret ballot to a roll call. The roll call, there were like 28 that said either no, someone else, present. How are you going to dwindle that down to 4 or 5? Well, I kind of like the idea of Donald J. Trump, quite honestly. He's the leader of our party. I've said that from the beginning. I'll continue to say it. We threw our all-stars out now. The top 3 we had with the Speaker, with the Majority Leader, with Jim Jordan. Now we've got 8 others, great candidates, Mike Johnson, all these others, and we've rejected those. I mean, what are we going to do? Go down and just put everybody's name in the damn hat? Maybe for the first time in the history of our conference, we should consider somebody from the outside. I suggest, and I'll suggest it if we go to the House floor for a vote, that it is our leader, Donald J. Trump, for 100 days. 100 days. I told the President you may have to adjust your golf schedule, your golf game, because we'll be busy, but I think he would be willing to do it for 100 days.
We can see that, there were members of Congress who voted to nominate the Speaker of the House to President Trump, even at this point. At the same time, Mike Johnson's name was well up in the Republican conference.
Mr. President, are you concerned about Jenna Ellis' plea deal?
No, don't know anything about it. Don't know anything. We're totally innocent of everything. That's political persecution.
What about Tom Emmer being...
She was a big fan of that. And in order to do something, I guess she made a deal. It's too bad to see it, but no, not at all. Tom Emmer, it looks like he's finished. Looks like he's finished. He was not a supporter. He was a rhino. And it looks like he's finished, but we'll see. You never know.
Do you support anyone else for Speaker, sir?
I'll let you know. I'll let you know. The trial is going, as you can see, extremely well. Thank you very much. Shouldn't be a trial. There shouldn't be a trial. It's called election interference. Should not be a trial. Thank you very much.
How problematic was it for Donald Trump to come out and call Tom Emmer a rhino?
I think it makes a difference in this race here. He had a number of votes that behind. I think that made more so, yeah.
Is there any path for the speakership, or should he step aside?
I'd leave that up to Tom to make that decision. To see, I know he's been meeting with members, and we'll see where we go.
You said it made a difference in a negative way, right?
Yeah, I heard some members who supported Tom, not support Tom also. Yeah.
Have you talked to Trump about this and the aftermath of this?
How much time should Emmer have at this point?
Okay, I leave that up to Tom. Tom's the nominee to decide. But one thing I know is we had 8 members work with all the Democrats, and now for almost a month we haven't been working on securing the border. We're not making sure from Israel has the weapons that they need. Inflation is still growing. Iran is still producing oil where America doesn't get to produce their full potential. This has just been a cluster, a mistake, and it has harmed not just the party but the nation.
So how do you get out of this? If there's no path for him.
It's very frustrating.
Would you advise Mr. Emmer to try to plow through this or do outreach to Trump?
Okay. Emmer's the whip. Emmer understands it. I don't run other people's campaigns. I let them try to do what they can.
McCarthy, as usual, condemns the methods of Gates and the other 8 who dismissed him. But who is leading the minority that is preventing any nominee from reaching 217 votes? Jim Jordan went into the floor vote with only 4 votes to lose. In 3 rounds of voting, the number of votes that went to McCarthy were 6 in the first round, and 5 in the second round. For the third round, he reduced the number of votes to 2, perhaps because of his speech endorsing Jim Jordan. Instead, 6 votes were cast for Provisional Speaker McHenry, who had not previously received any votes. This means that, no matter how many times anyone tries, no one will get 217 votes. But why was Mike Johnson able to easily and unanimously overcome the 217 vote barrier that Jim Jordan could not?
And just in late this afternoon, the House Majority Whip Tom Emmer was selected to be the next Republican nominee for House Speaker, but before it could be brought to a vote on the House floor, he has already dropped out of the running. There were 8 candidates vying for the top spot. Through a series of secret ballots, the list was cut down to 2, and that's when Minnesota Congressman Emmer defeat Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana 117-97. But now he's abruptly dropped out of the race, making him the 3rd GOP candidate to unsuccessfully try for the top position as Speaker of the House. The House has now been without a leader for 3 weeks.
Now, hours after he became the nominee, former President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, writing, voting for a globalist Republican in name only, or as he says, a rhino like Tom Emmer would be a tragic mistake. And that opposition obviously is no surprise, as Emmer voted to certify the 2020 election results. And the post seemed to be the final blow to completely sink Emmer's bid this afternoon. But his voting record was also a huge obstacle. His vote to codify same-sex marriage and his support of the bipartisan spending bill to avoid a government shutdown in September was also a big problem for some conference members. But this continued Republican infighting has lasted 21 days. The House is completely paralyzed. No legislation is being passed, including critical aid to Israel and Ukraine. And then there is another possible government shutdown looming just about 23 days away. So it's still a big mess right now. It's chaos, and we'll just have to continue to follow it.
Tom Emmer withdrew from the Speaker race just 4 hours after winning the nomination for Speaker of the House. This shock would have caused legislators who disrupt unity to think twice about what they are doing. At this time, no nominations have yet been made for Mike Johnson. But, President Trump wrote on Truth Social that, "I have many wonderful friends wanting to be Speaker of the House, and some are truly great warriors."
Yeah, Lorenzo, good evening. This has been a marathon day for House Republicans. After 14 hours inside of this room behind me, the Ways and Means Committee room in the Longworth House office building, after 10 rounds of voting and 2 Speaker nominees, they finally have someone to bring to the floor. Republican Mike Johnson of Louisiana. As of right now, the plan is to take his nomination to the House floor for a full vote tomorrow. Just within the past 10 minutes, we were invited into that room for the first time today as Johnson was surrounded by the leadership and some of the rank and file members who are supporting him. They stood there, they applauded his name, and they said, "We are united." That is the first time we have heard those words from this Republican caucus in the 21 days since Kevin McCarthy was ousted. He addressed the media just a few moments ago. Let's listen to what the new Speaker designee Mike Johnson had to say.
I'm honored to have the support of my colleagues, and what they understand about this is servant leadership. We're going to serve the people of this country. We're going to restore their faith in this Congress, this institution of government. America is the last best hope of man on the earth.
So here is the key component to take away as you go to bed tonight. 221 Republicans in the conference. No one tonight, no one in a roll call vote objected to Mike Johnson. That hasn't been the case for any of the other Republican nominees going to a House floor vote. So again, we'll be out here first thing in the morning because we are expecting a vote on the House floor at noon tomorrow. By this time tomorrow night, we could have a new House Speaker.
One of the things we don't know much about Mike Johnson is that the media doesn't cover his congressional activities very often. The same is true on YouTube, where Mike Johnson has his own official channel, but all of his videos are distributed on YouTube for children. Because of this, those of us who watch YouTube in general are not likely to see much of it unless we consciously search for it. This is probably because they are often subject to censorship and removal. Why? Mike Johnson, a socialist lawyer, supports a lawsuit seeking to overturn the results of the 2020 election, and opposes Congress certifying the election results on January 6, 2021. He served as President Trump's impeachment lawyer and defended President Trump, and is currently conducting an investigation into Biden's impeachment prosecution.
Mr. President, will you visit Capitol Hill for the Speaker of the House race to meet with House members in person?
I may, but I think Mike Johnson is doing very well. He's a tremendous congressman, respected by everybody. I hear it looks like it's really good. I haven't had one negative comment about him. Everybody likes him, just respected by all, and that's something we need. And it looks like that's going to happen. So that'll be a wonderful thing. I put out a truth today on him, and they did one last night. You saw that. We could get somebody that's going to be really spectacular, and maybe for many years to come. He'll be very good. So we're very happy about that. On the trial here, it's going very well. This is a Biden witch hunt deal. It all comes out of the DOJ. It's to interfere with the election. Getting back to Congress, we think Mike Johnson's going to do really well. He's popular. He's smart. He's sharp. He's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be a fantastic speaker. I believe that will happen. We'll see what. You'll let me know when I come out. I'll be out in a couple of hours.
Tried to scuttle this process. He got, at first, 30-some-odd people and then 40-some-odd people to vote for him. And the McCarthy objective was to block any other candidate from being able to assume the speakership. And after a while, that became evident. McCarthy scuttled Scalise. He ultimately scuttled Jordan. He ultimately scuttled Emmer. And at the end of the day, the universal appeal of Mike Johnson was too strong for him to oppose. Hours ago, Congressman Molinaro of New York stood up and made a unanimous consent request after Mr. Emmer had pulled out for us at that exact moment to take a roll call vote on Mike Johnson. And guess which member of Congress objected to that unanimous consent request? Kevin McCarthy, because he hadn't figured out a way to sabotage Mike Johnson. Mike is the right guy. He's an inspirational leader. I'm so excited to go elect him Speaker of the House.
Can you talk a little bit more about why you think Johnson is the right fit for the job?
Yeah, he is really an oversight bulldog. I've been sitting next to Mike Johnson for 7 years on the House Judiciary Committee. We are no longer going to have the logjam for subpoenas and for oversight and for the rigorous work that our call demands. Also, as the Republican Study Committee chairman, he was a real fiscal hawk, and he showed how to put downward pressure on spending. And unlike even other candidates who I enthusiastically supported, Mike Johnson wants to move away from governing by continuing resolution, and he wants to have spending bills that address single issues. I don't think we're going to, you heard a lot of the Speaker Designate's discussion about Israel in his remarks, but you didn't hear this obsession to follow the Biden administration lashing Israel to Ukraine and forcing our goodwill toward Israel to carry the political anchor that is Ukraine funding at this time in the House Republican caucus. So those would be some of the things initially that are giving us a lot of hope. Great, thanks guys.
Did he mention in the room anything about, during his candidate pitch, anything about how he's going to handle spending or the Ukraine?
Yeah.
What was his
in his campaign for House Speaker, Mike Johnson indicated that he wanted to move the appropriations bills rather than try to govern long-term through continuing resolution. Other candidates favored long-term continuing resolutions. Mike Johnson wants the very single-subject bills I've been fighting for. So
and
he
what
did
did he
discuss
say
that.
about Israel?
But he did not express a necessity of lashing that Israel aid to Ukraine.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
In their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 429, of which the Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana has received 220 votes. And the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 209 votes. Therefore, the Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 118th Congress.
Thank you very much, and I just want to congratulate Mike Johnson. He will be a great Speaker of the House, and we were very happy to have helped. I've known him for a long time. He's a tremendous leader and a tremendous man. Comes from a wonderful place, Louisiana. He's going to make us all proud. So at this time yesterday, nobody was thinking of Mike, and then we put out the word, and now he's the Speaker of the House. So I want to just thank all of the supporters that I have, and I want to thank all of the supporters that Mike has. And again, he'll be a great speaker. I think you're going to be very proud of him. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.